Hey everybody, welcome back to Whiteboard Finance. In this video, I'm going to show you how to invest in your 20s. I'm a little bit under the weather. I just got back from FinCon 2019, which was absolutely insane, and I think I got sick in the airplane on the way back. It was nice because I got to meet Graham Stephan, meet Kevin, Nate O'Brien, Ryan Scribner, who I've already known, just a bunch of people that you see on YouTube, and you get to actually meet them in person. It was awesome. But I digress. So I just wanted to ask you guys, give the video a like because this is going to be an awesome video. I don't normally start out these videos with writing on the whiteboard, but I wanted to get down 5 foundations before we get into my recommendations for how to invest in your 20s. So let's get right into it. So number 1 is getting your income up. So getting good pay or a good career when you're in your 20s. This is typically if you're graduating college, you start getting your big boy or big girl job with your W-2. And you start to see a significant increase in pay. That is the most important because income is your most powerful wealth building tool that you have, period. Number 2 is paying off high interest debt. The reason for this is because debt is the biggest killer of wealth building. So if you have these high interest credit cards or consumer cards or stupid things that you didn't even need that are costing you anything above, I'd say 5 to 6 to 7% interest, that's when you need to start eliminating these first before you consider investing. Number 3 is not buying a new car. So I know we all get the new big boy, big girl job and we all start making, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 grand a year right out of college, right? That's not the case for most, but when you start living from rice and beans and late night 2, 3 in the morning frozen pizza to actually making some real money in your W-2 job, everyone wants to get the new car because they've been driving that beater all throughout college. Well, please do not do that because that's one of the dumbest things you can do with your money is buying a new car or even leasing at this point in your life. You don't need it. If your college car, if you were lucky enough to have one in college, is still working, please use that. Number 4 is typical for everyone, not just in your 20s. Avoid lifestyle inflation. So lifestyle inflation is when you're starting to make more money, you start going out to more expensive restaurants, you're taking more extravagant trips because all your friends are now doing it. They're in that early mid-20s in their lives and you're like, oh, Cheryl just did this, Mike just did this, I gotta go do it because they just did that. I gotta go to, the Maldives or something. Don't do that. Just chill, be yourself how you were in college and stack that money away. And if you haven't, pay off that high interest debt using that money that you would have used for lifestyle inflation. Number 5, create a comfortable budget, okay? So you don't need to go like Dave Ramsey, rice and beans, because no one wants to live like that. And at this point in your life, you don't necessarily need to live like that if you do have, if you don't have that much debt. So I'm not saying rice and beans, but I'm not saying, living like eating out every day, living extravagantly either. Just find something in the middle so you know where your money's going so you can check off all these boxes so you can get started investing. So with that being said, let's get into the 5 ways to invest in your 20s. Okay, so number 1 is going to be house hacking. So for those of you that don't know what house hacking is, this is essentially either buying a house and renting out different rooms for different roommates, or it could be buying up to a 4-unit property. So the reason I say 4-unit property is because, give me 1 second here, just to get this up on the board. So basically, FHA allows you to put 3.5% down. An FHA loan is typically a loan for someone who's a first-time home buyer. So say, for example, if you're looking at a $200,000 house, that times 3.5% is only $7,000 down. So you can control a $200,000 property, whether it's a single family home, whether it's a duplex, whether it's a triplex, whether it's a quad, and basically your roommates or your tenants are paying down your mortgage. So typically you're either living for super cheap because you have 1, 2, 3 tenants or roommates if you choose to live that way. You're either living for cheap, for free, or you're actually getting paid to live in your own house. So the nice thing about this is, as I mentioned, they're paying down your mortgage. Typically, real estate has appreciated historically at least 3% per year over time. In other markets, much more than that. And ultimately, you're basically controlling a piece of property for very little. So yes, if you don't plan on moving or if you plan on getting a manager and do plan on moving in the future, you can still rent out the unit that you're living in once you move out, and then you'll realize even more cash flow. So in my opinion, house hacking is the #1 way to build wealth in your 20s because you're not married, you don't have kids, you don't have all those responsibilities, and roommates won't bother you that much, or having a tenant living next to you won't bother you that much. So #1 is house hacking. #2, this is pretty much a no-brainer. This is for the people that are graduating college. I'm going to call this the 401k match. Okay, so very simple. So a 401k is pretty much a tax-deferred, employee-sponsored retirement plan. So if you're, basically you can contribute up to, I believe it's either $18,000 or $19,000 for 2019, and you can contribute up to what your employer matches, in my personal opinion, or you should contribute up to what your employer matches. So if your employer matches 6%, you need to contribute 6% because it's essentially free money, okay? It's like giving yourself a free raise. So if you've watched my other videos on 401k versus Roth IRA, I'll leave that tag up in the corner up here below, or above, excuse me. Sorry, I'm all messed up. I'm like on Dayquil and stuff. And the 401k match is definitely a great way to earn some free money, okay? So in that same vein, #3 is maxing out your Roth IRA if you're able to do so. So the reason I'm saying this on top of the 401k is because if you max out your Roth IRA every year, you're starting early and you get to work on compound interest at a young age. So the power of compound interest will grow with you over time. Okay, so here's a perfect example. Say you're 22 years old, okay? Right now in 2019, the max amount you can contribute to a Roth IRA is $6,000. If that grows over the course of time at 7% from age, let's call it 22 to 65, that will grow to $1,486,659 if you just put away $6,000 a year. That's $500 a month. So instead of having some stupid car lease or some stupid car payment or whatever, you're contributing $500 to your retirement. Yes, over the course of those, 30 years or so, or 33 years, this will not have the same purchasing power as $1.4 million does today in 2019. It's probably going to be more like $500,000 in today's dollars. However, you're going to be much better off than someone that needs to eat dog food or cat food because you chose to neglect this, okay? So, #4, excuse me, is take risks, okay? The reason I'm saying take risks is because you're young. You are in your 20s. You basically have time to make up for any losses or any dumb mistakes you may make in this step, okay? So some things that you can do if you're fresh out of college or if you're in your 20s and you're eager to learn, maybe even take a job at a startup company and take some equity. That's actually what I did. So my first job was selling cars because no one was hiring. That was December of 2010. My second job was actually being the first employee at a startup company. We were called efuneral.com. I got some equity in the company and we ultimately sold to a publicly traded company. So I don't have, a helicopter or my name on any buildings or anything like that, but it was still a really cool experience having equity in a startup company. It just made you more motivated to make the company succeed. So if you don't want to work for a startup company, or if you do have a W-2 job and it's already going well, or a business that's already going well, why not invest in a friend's business for equity? So if your buddy's a genius, let's just say he's the next Zuckerberg or Ellison or Gates or whatever, and he's like, dude, I got this awesome idea, it's gonna do X, Y, and Z, do you wanna invest? And say, hey, sure, here's a couple grand, give me a percentage equity in the company, and if that blows up, there you go. And if it doesn't work out, guess what? You lost a couple grand and you have the rest of your life to make that up. So the final one, in taking risks, I'm very entrepreneurial. Obviously, YouTube is my full-time gig. Start a business yourself. So look at all the people that I just mentioned, the Zuckerbergs, the Gateses, the Ellisons. All these people pretty much quit in college and started their own thing. Facebook, Windows, Oracle, et cetera, et cetera. So at the end of the day, taking risks in your 20s can pay off much greater than keeping a W-2 job for the rest of your life. That's just my personal opinion, and I could be wrong about that. So #5, this one is pretty interesting. If you know about the FIRE movement, I'm going to call this Fire with VT Sachs. So this may not make any sense to you whatsoever, or you know exactly what I'm talking about. Basically, FIRE with VT Sachs means financial independence, retire early. So there's been a big movement called the FIRE movement. Basically, what financial independence, retire early means is that if you can ultimately save 25 times your annual expenditures, okay? So say it costs you 40 grand to live. 25 times 40,000 equals $1 million. So if you're able to save up 25 times your annual expenditures, you are basically financially free or financially independent. That's because of the rule, the 4% rule. So if I multiply 1 million times 4%, that takes me back down to $40,000. That's basically what I need to take out of this account to be able to live off for 1 year. Okay, the reason for this is because the stock market has historically grown above 4% per year over the course of many, many, many years. So whether it's a good market, a bad market, bull market, bear market, whatever you want to call it, you're able to take out 4% out of this money that you've saved to be able to cover these expenses, and the money is still ultimately going to grow over time because the market has returned more than that 4% mentioned here. Okay, so what is VT Sachs? So VT Sachs is simply Vanguard's total stock market index fund. It's basically the only fund that you'll need to invest in if you want to be fully diversified throughout the whole market. And you can do so using like a Betterment, for example. I've promoted Betterment in the past, or you can get it directly from Vanguard. If you are interested in investing in Betterment, I do have a link below, and if you use that link, obviously I may receive compensation for that. It's completely up to you. So you can use Betterment to invest in those stocks for you, or you can just go straight to Vanguard. But to be completely diversified, that's pretty much the only fund you'll ever need. So there you have it, guys. Those are the 5 things on how to invest in your 20s. I believe the first part of the video is a great way to establish a good foundation. And the second way, or the second part of the video, are 5 steps that I would repeat personally if I had a time machine. So as always, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and have a prosperous day.